G'day and welcome to Downunder Downunder, coming to you from the geological wonder of the southeast corner of South Australia. Today we're going to be featuring the World Heritage listed Naracoorte Caves, and with me is Amy Mackin and Frank Bromley. We're going to be chatting with them about different things, but so welcome to the show, and we trust that you'll enjoy it as well. Now, Amy, my first question is to you. How many caves are there in this group?
Sure. Well, within the bounds of our national park, there are 28 known
28
caves. But actually, the whole region is called the Limestone Coast because it's made up of limestone, ancient sea floor that's very porous with water. So it's actually potted with caves. There are hundreds of caves right across this region.
Someone told me there were over 1,000 known caves and sinkholes in our region.
Oh, very, very possible.
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very, very good. Now look, we've got some footage there of the entrance to World Heritage listed Naracoorte Caves, and this is where you can come in and you can book your tickets and so on and so forth, isn't it?
Absolutely. So this is the Wirreanda Fossil Centre, and as you can see, our cave guide Andrew there is talking to the visitors, explaining to them the different offers that are available, so cave tours and other things you can experience on the park. And as part of the Fossil Centre, of course, is the Wirreanda display, which is a diorama representing what this area was like in the past, particularly showcasing those megafauna. Excellent.
So we're in Blanche Cave at the moment, so welcome to Blanche Cave, everybody. Now look, Frank, no. When we were in Engelbrett Cave, I got very confused because they're saying Engelbrett Cave is a dry cave and yet there's water in it. What is this one?
Sure.
Amy?
Well, the caves at Naracoorte are dry caves.
Dry caves,
and really what we're talking about is whether there's groundwater in them anymore. So people would be familiar with some of the sinkholes in the lower southeast that have water in them. Here in Naracoorte, our caves are formed by very similar processes. That is groundwater coming up through the limestone, following cracks and opening them up to dissolve out the caves. But over millennia, the groundwater has actually dropped, and that's then drained our caves and left them as these open spaces that we can now walk through, and we don't need scuba equipment, for example, to go through them. What visitors will find though is that some caves feel wetter than others. So Blanche Cave is a classic dry cave. As you can see in the footage, there's lots of natural light coming through. That's coming from big, large entrances that allow a lot of airflow through the cave, and that keeps it very dry now. But we know that it still has formations growing, so there's still water that comes through from the surface and helps to grow the stalagmites and stalactites.
There's shells in there.
Yeah, so that's the evidence that this is an ancient sea floor. So this is the limestone bedrock in which the caves have been dissolved, and beautiful, stunning fossils of shells and bryozoa and sponges that formed the seabed here around 25 million years ago.
Wow.
When you go to a cave like Victoria Fossil Cave, the whole atmosphere is very different. It's a deeper cave and its entrances are very narrow and in fact closed now, so we use doors to get into that cave. That keeps the humidity really high, so it's up around the sort of 90–95% humidity, so it feels quite different in there. And they're also very active formation growth in those caves, so the stalagmites and stalactites and even flowstones as well can be quite wet throughout the year.
Frank, my question to you is, who was it that first discovered these caves?
Well, obviously the local Indigenous communities held the cave in high regard, or the caves, and were aware of them for a very long time before Europeans arrived. But the first Europeans to stumble upon the caves were, in fact, they found this cave, Blanche Cave.
Blanche Cave,
because it's the most obvious one here. There's 3 big openings into it. They were shepherds moving sheep, or looking for sheep in the area, and stumbled upon these caves. And the names, there's William McIntosh mentioned, and Benjamin Sanders were the first 2 that are credited with discovering this cave, and subsequent caves after that.
Right, and I heard that Tennyson Woods had something to do with this cave. Can you tell us about that?
Well, Tennyson Woods was a local Catholic priest, a first really educated settler in the area here, having been to university in the UK. And he's renowned for being very, very interested in natural history. the science of geology, biology, all sorts of things. He did a lot of studies, wrote a lot of papers about the geology of the caves, about the fossils he found within the caves and other aspects to the environment in this limestone coast area. He's also the man that inspired Sister Mary MacKillop to become a teacher and go on to do fantastic things in the field of education.
That's right, yes.
So he started a tradition here we're very proud of. We still encourage students to come here, whether it's kindergarten kids on a day out or PhD candidates studying the really complicated scientific things. We do what we can to make sure they get as much out of this place as possible.
Excellent, excellent. Now, Amy, I want to ask you about the fossils that were found here. Why are they so important?
Sure. Well, the footage is actually showing Victoria Fossil Cave, which is actually where in more modern times fossils were discovered, and in fact the first megafauna fossils from Naracoorte Caves were discovered, and that was in 1969.
Can you explain megafauna, what that it's about?
Absolutely. So megafauna, it's a collective word we use to describe a group of animals that used to be part of, or live in Australia, be part of the faunal community, that were on average around 30% larger in body size than any of their relatives that might have been living at the time, and certainly that persist today. And we also consider that the megafauna, part of the definition of megafauna is that they went extinct in the Pleistocene around 50,000 years ago, and the Pleistocene is the geological period, a name for a geological period. But megafauna evolved in Australia, and we see the first evidence of megafaunal species emerging in the Riversley fossil assemblages, which is our sister World Heritage Site. And that's 25 million years old. So together Riversley and Naracoorte tell this amazing story of the evolution of Australia's unique fauna.
Just tell me where Riversley is.
Riversley is in far northwest Queensland, so right near the Northern Territory border, so
Yes.
very far away from us. But they're also a cave fauna like us. But just very different conditions to here.
Yes. Gee, that's really good. Tell us about the World Heritage listing that happened, and why was that happening?
Sure. At Riversley and Naracoorte, we were World Heritage listed in 1994. And that was
and Riversley as well.
Yeah, so we're actually together, listed together, and we're called the Australian Fossil Mammal Sites. And the World Heritage listing reflects the global importance of the fossils that are found at our two sites. So they're very rich fossil records, and they're really unprecedented in Australia and certainly globally for telling the story of Australia's unique fauna.
So we had giant kangaroos, did we?
We absolutely did, and we've got our fossil deposits here showcase the megafauna kangaroos and other types of animals as well. The biggest kangaroo is called Procoptodon Goliath, indicating that sense of Goliath being really massive. And in fact, in the fossil centre, there's a wonderful model of that kangaroo, and it's wonderful for children because they get to actually scale themselves up against this really big kangaroo.
I suppose they would, wouldn't they?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And it shows a lot about how these animals are both similar to but different from the living kangaroos.
Yes. That's really brilliant, I reckon. So are there still any paleontological digs going on here?
Sure. Well, where's
Paleontological. Did you notice I got that word right?
Yes, it can be a tongue twister, and I'm guilty of that myself sometimes. So we certainly have ongoing paleontological research going here at the caves, and there are fossil digs that visitors can come and actually view as part of their tours on the caves.
Wow.
So the actual activity in a dig occurs on and off over time. The digging out the fossils is a really exciting part, obviously, for the paleontologists and the visitors to see. But where the hard work and where it takes a long time is actually processing all those fossils back in the lab, cleaning them, hardening them, preserving them, and then working out what they are, and then using that information to answer the types of questions that the researchers might have. So there's always active research. Sometimes we sort of describe it as being a bit behind the scenes or in the lab. but certainly when visitors come, they learn about the research outcomes and the findings and get to see the fossil digs and where the fossils have come from.
That's brilliant, isn't it? Frank, what do you reckon about that? Is it all right?
It's a fantastic place to work as a guide, where we can introduce people to those aspects of paleontology and the fact that we can look at the history of our environment and learn from the history to help us perhaps understand what we've lost in the past.
Yes.
And how what we can learn from that history maybe in fact help us look after what we have left into the future.
Absolutely.
And so, looking back into the paleontological side of it, is like a window back into the past, isn't it?
I've heard it described as the caves in general as a book, a big book with lots of different chapters that we just have to learn how to read it to learn a lot about lots of aspects of our history here, not just the animals and the plants, but climate, geological history and things like this.
Well, I've just got one more question for you, Frank. Are there any public or private events that can go on here?
There are. In fact, this cave we're in, Blanche Cave,
Yes.
can be hired by the public.
It can be hired.
For
Well, we
ceremonies
better have a
like-
party, I reckon.
Well, you can have a party, but you'd have to do it without food or drink.
Oh, okay.
So we can use the space for weddings and
Yes.
things like this, but the reception will have to take place somewhere else.
Yes.
But it's a fantastic atmosphere in here. We also have concerts performed in here, opera. We've also got facilities in other caves here that the public can use, like our wonderful cafe, fantastic
We've got the cafe
meals.
up there on the screen now.
Yeah, and make lots of comments about how good the coffee is.
Coffee.
But we also, yes, and the atmosphere at the cafe on a nice day, we've got an outdoor eating area that's really a lovely place to sit and look at the birds and chat and things. So fantastic facility. We do also have an accommodation area.
Oh,
We've
yeah, that's
got,
right. Yes. And this is your souvenirs, aren't they?
Souvenirs, yeah, but they can
wow.
sell the odd boomerang and crystal things.
Yes.
But it's an opportunity to come and look at our natural history in the Wirreanda Fossil Centre as well. As Amy mentioned, there's the models of the extinct animals where they move and they growl, and it does actually frighten a few of the younger children.
Does it?
There's a lot to see and a lot of information, really very technical information if you care to read what's in there. The tour guides are there to inform you about what's involved in each of the tours and help you make the best decision for you and your group. So it's a lovely spot to come.
And so, like for example, you've got the Wirreanda Bunkhouse and stuff for accommodation, haven't you?
We do. We have a couple of different types of accommodation. We've got the bunkhouse where primarily for school groups.
Yes.
To come and stay. They can stay for a night or two and experience things like adventure caving, fossil tours, bats tours, and things like this. A lot these days are actually looking at the biology of the landscape, the trees and things, how that change. But so there's a bunkhouse there with a fully equipped camp kitchen. There's also a campsite and powered sites with electric barbecues. There's hot water, even a laundry facility if you want to do your washing. So,
laundry as
fantastic.
well, eh? Yeah. That's very, very good. Well, that looks really good. The
Yeah,
bunkhouse,
it's
doesn't
quite
it?
comfortable, pretty basic. And most schools would bring their own bedding, the pillow and a sleeping bag.
Yep.
But that kitchen facility is not only great for cooking meals and things, but some groups have lectures in there and conferences and things like this. So it's a wonderful facility available for hire.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, folks, that's about wraps it up. It's been great to be here at Naracoorte Caves, World Heritage listed, and look, I just think you've got to come here. That's all there is to it. You've got to just come and experience it for yourself. Look, we're going to leave you with some footage of the Victoria Fossil Cave again, and we'll catch up. We'll catch up with you next time on the show. See you later.